What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Faithful Phanatics Show live here on DSM-Media's Philadelphia YouTube channel. Happy Friday, guys. If you guys are new to the channel, if you want to be interactive throughout today's show or any of our shows here, or if you just like the content, make sure to support by smashing that subscribe button. It's the best spot to get your comments pulled up here on the screen with your host. I am one half of them this morning, Dylan Davis. To my right, my faithful co-host, Scotty. The Sixers take down the defending NBA champs and Nikola Jokic the other night at the Wells Fargo Center, 126-121. Joel Embiid with back-to-back 41-point performances on a back-to-back. Scotty, the Sixers take care of business in both of those games. We're going to break down that game. We're going to talk about Tobias Harris, Tyrese Maxey, the depth, all of that. And then a couple more reports have leaked out about the Sixers, Daryl Morey, and the trade deadline. Shams reporting that they're going to be active. Daryl Morey is engaging around the league. However, he does not feel as if Daryl Morey and the Sixers are going to be going towards one of the main assets at the deadline, whether that's Zach LaVine, DeJounte Murray. Pascal Siakam is now off the board in Indiana, traded from the Raptors. So we'll see what the Sixers do. We'll talk about all of that. But my man, happy Friday. Can't wait to shovel some snow soon. But what's going on?
Yeah, man. Gotta get out of here after this show and head to the grocery store. I'm sure it'll be a madhouse, man. But yeah, I had to wait for the wife to have a day off work this week, and unfortunately that day was today. So we'll be going to the grocery store after this. Have to shovel first, of course. But no, I'm happy to be here, man. Happy to talk about something a little more positive today. And yeah, the snow outside. I don't know. How do you feel about snow, man? I'm kind of in between on it.
I hate it.
When I was younger, I used to love it because I used to love it.
As a kid, I loved it.
But I don't know. I like the way it looks. It's just the work that comes with it is not necessary. No. Like, you know what I mean? I'd rather not have that added task because it's
no. And a few years ago, I lived in a development where there was basically like a grounds crew, like the maintenance guys plowed and kind of shoveled the sidewalks and all. So I didn't have to do anything. Now you got to
do
everything.
Shit. Yeah, the man in the house.
Yeah, I mean, of course you love it when, you know, A, you're a kid, or B, you're in middle school or high school, and it could mean a day off or something like that.
And see,
but now, I'm good.
If I could have a day where, you know, maybe I go out with friends and do some tubing, right? Like, if you could have a day like that. But the only thing with that, man, is like when I start to think about actually going out and tubing, I just start to think, like, how long would I last? Like,
no, I'd rather be inside.
I do one, you know, tube down the hill and then I'm done. Like, what the fuck's the point of doing it in the first place?
Your trip getting there? Nah, I'm good.
Right, or fall down the hill and break something. I'm good, man. So I don't know. I've kind of grown out of the fascination with snow. Now it just equals hard work. Right. So I'm good on it, man.
Yeah, no, I'm A-okay. And the last thing, like, you couldn't give this to me at Christmas. It couldn't have snowed 4 inches around Christmas time.
The weather, Mother Nature is like tone deaf, man. Like, give us the snow in the holiday season.
January 19th. There's nothing good going on January 19th.
At least the kids are off. Good for them, man. I think they got off school like last night before it even started coming down. So good for them.
Hell yeah, that was the best.
No snow days in the NBA though.
Anyway, well, actually, if you're DeAndre Ayton and it's icy in your neighborhood, you can get out of having to go to the arena.
That is actually hilarious, man. I've never ever seen something like that.
Not in my lifetime, and I would promise you nothing like this happened before my lifetime with that generation. So no, this was definitely a first. And the confusing part was they said that Portland sent like employees to his house and they couldn't get it done. Like So I mean, I guess it had to be pretty bad, but still, like, what?
Can you imagine that being your job? Like, shit, I got to leave the facility and go shovel out DeAndre.
I tell you, no, fire me, no. I gotta go get a shovel and boots and go dig this guy out of his driveway. No,
Yeah, get
Tell him
your
to do it
7-foot
himself.
ass up out of bed, boy, and go shovel your driveway. It
You
might be the
kidding
hardest
me?
thing you have to do.
Seriously. The hell's going on? Someone on Twitter said, "Don't let Ben Simmons see this," and then the next tweet was like, "Ben Simmons out," and then in parentheses it was fog, and it was
He
Twitter's
can't
too
make
good
it back
sometimes,
from
man.
Paris, man. He's out there
Yeah,
posing with the Eiffel Tower.
Twitter's too good sometimes, man. But anyway, to get down to business here, Scotty. Like I said to kick off the show, the Sixers with a humongous win the other night down at
Yes,
the
sir.
Wells Fargo Center, taking down Jokic and the Nuggets. And mind you, this was a slightly shorthanded Sixers team, right? No DeAnthony Melton in the starting lineup. He's going to miss a couple games. Still no Robert Covington. Not that plays a huge factor into what they're doing. No Mo Bamba, no Daniel House. So they were missing some pieces that may or may not have played, and they were missing a starter. So this was not a fully healthy 76ers roster that went into battle the other night. And it was, first of all, a tremendous basketball game. Like, let's get that out of the way. That was one of the best back and forth, most entertaining first halves, right? Because the second half slowed down tremendously. But since the Sixers won and they were back and forth, it was still a great game. But I mean, both teams in the mid, I forget what the score was, 78 or something crazy like that at halftime. It was absolutely phenomenal to watch. But to see the Sixers hit big shot after big shot only exemplifies my belief in this team. And I know we did this same song and dance last year with this team's different, right? This is not the same team as past years, but it really does feel like that, Scotty. You not only had a second half of a back-to-back here, you not only had Joel Embiid coming back from that knee injury, playing in both of these games, dropping 41 the first night. He comes out, does the same thing. He's automatic from mid-range. Like I believe he's shooting over 62, 63% from between 12 and 19 feet on the floor. He's automatic down the stretch, elbow jumper, elbow jumper, elbow jumper. To TR's points, the double-digit assist. Incredible. But then the supporting cast around him. That's what made me go, okay, hold on. If it's a big if, obviously, when the lights are brightest in the postseason, but if you can get anything close to this from the supporting cast, this team is a legit contender right now, January 19th, before the trade deadline. Tobias Harris in the 20s.
Yeah.
Being efficient on both ends. Tyrese Maxey to start the game, really to start the game, to be that second guy, right? Hit a couple threes to open up next to Joel Embiid. Nico Batum, I mean, catching the ball above his head on his tippy toes and banging threes off of Joel Embiid cross-court passes. Patrick Beverley playing like the last 7 minutes of the game because he has that much of an impact on both ends of the floor, right? Kelly Oubre Jr., Marcus Morris with a big 4-point play in the fourth quarter. All of these guys contributing, hitting shots, Scotty. You go back to game 6 against Boston. What was the one thing that wasn't happening?
Yeah. No shots.
Shot making down the stretch from the others. You got that with this team. The defense is there, the intensity. That run at the end of the first half where the center was buzzing when they had like the back-to-back turnovers, Tobias alley-oop, a Kelly Oubre alley-oop. That was some of the best Sixers basketball I've seen in a while, and you did it against a fully healthy Denver Nuggets team.
Yeah.
I could not be more ecstatic about this team right now.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you here. This was probably the most impressive win of the season so far, I would say. Just given the way Embiid played and the efficiency that came with it. Now, obviously, it could have been a better defensive showing, but guys were just hitting shots.
It got killed on the glass.
Yeah, it got killed on the glass. That's like the big negative, I would say, right? Embiid only had 7 rebounds, but he dominated everywhere else in this game. The biggest thing for me, man, was on the tail end of a back-to-back, like to be able to come out and play like that on the second night. Now, obviously, in the playoffs, it's not really going to matter because you're not going to have back-to-backs anyways, but it does show a little bit of resilience, a little bit of focus in a back-to-back when you're able to win both games like that. And Embiid returns from injury and drops 41 in each game. It's pretty amazing stuff. And I would agree, man. I think, the way you look at this Sixers team, obviously the report came out about Daryl Morey, maybe reevaluating this team, and maybe you don't go after the big third star. And I don't know. I kind of agree with that. Like, I look at Pascal Siakam, for example, and he got traded to the Pacers for, Bruce Brown, Kyra Lewis, Jordan Nwora, and 3 first-round
Yeah.
picks. And it's like, what? We would probably have to give up, like, Tobias Harris, an empty contract, maybe give them, like, a Jaden Springer or, one of the younger guys, and then what? 3 first-round picks for Pascal Siakam, and then you have to ask yourself, I'm not saying that Tobias is the same player as Pascal, but
No.
is Pascal that much better than Tobias? Is he that much of a better fit on the team than Tobias Harris?
I did not like the fact Pascal
You know what I
Siakam
mean?
was never on my radar. I'm being dead honest with you. Never. I hate the fit. Hate the fit with him on this team.
Yeah, so you look at that and it's like, then you can take yourself to like Zach LaVine, right? And there's a conversation that can be had about that, because like the fit there does match. I can at least say that. But then you ask yourself, do you want to really trade like Tobias Harris on the last year of his contract and then just be locked in to Zach LaVine at $40 million a year? Like, I don't know if I'm signing up for that at this point, man, when I can just have my pick of the choosing, come off season, right?
Exactly.
And
See, that's the thing
like,
Daryl Morey has to maneuver, right? Because if you go all in for that Pascal Siakam trade, you have to max him out in the offseason.
Yeah.
So
that's not happening.
Like, do you even want that to be an option? And then if the answer is no, or you're questioning that, why the hell am I going to give up all this draft capital and these players like a Tobias Harris for half a season of Pascal Siakam when I don't even love the fit, right? Zach LaVine, you mentioned it. You're locked into him. And someone brought up this great point, and it has to do with DeJounte Murray too, but I'm still all in on DeJounte Murray. But bringing in winning type of players like TRA, I want Bruce Brown. I think Bruce Brown is attainable now that he's in Toronto. I think he would be a perfect fit for this team coming off the bench. And he's a champion. The bottom line, that's something I think Daryl has to take a look at the deadline, whether it is a third option or just depth pieces. I think Daryl Morey needs to look at the types of players he wants to acquire. Because right now, it feels like you're this close.
Yeah.
It feels like you are not far off from an Eastern Conference Finals, from an NBA Finals appearance. And does Zach LaVine solve your issues? Zach LaVine's got no winning culture inside of him. Right? I mean, we want him, but DeJounte Murray, I think his best year was like a 500 year, maybe slightly above 500 year on a team. So these different guys, what types of players do you want to bring in with months to spare?
Like we thought, right, when DeJounte goes to Atlanta with Trae Young, we thought that backcourt was supposed to be, this like electric backcourt. Now, obviously, you had DeJounte to Maxey and Embiid. It's a whole different picture. But
and mind you, he's having a career year next to Trae Young right now. So
and that's fair as well. So I do agree, man. I think ultimately what it allows Daryl Morey to do is take a step back and say, hey, we don't need to go out and get one of these star guys. We don't need to give up, half of our team to go out here and get anything. We actually want to keep that depth and add to it in the margins. And I think the best trade that could come of it would be something of the nature of like a Rocco. Maybe you do have to give up like a Jaden Springer and then draft compensation for a player or two, and a player or two that's going to play. And I think Bruce Brown fits that bid. I don't know what we would necessarily have to give up for him. Hopefully it would just be salary filler. That's what I would hope, plus draft comp. But you mentioned it. He would be the perfect fit. You talk about a guy that for Denver last year obviously contributed heavily to their championship run and winning it. And he basically operated, TR asked that question earlier. Can we trust Pat Bev as our full-time backup point guard? And I think a guy like Bruce Brown, you bring him in, he can handle ball handling duties. He can play make, he can get into the lane, he can hit floaters, he can hit the 3-point shot. He does like literally everything. I don't know if anybody watched like the game last night. He debuted for the Raptors and just started off. Let me check his numbers here, but started off hot. Just comes in and immediately fits in because he's just that prototypical glue guy, man. We talk about Nick Batum and his fit. I mean, this guy is of the same nature, but does even more. Last night in his debut for the Raptors, he had 15 points, 7 rebounds in 25 minutes. He was 7 for 10 from the field. Just comes in,
Pretty
7
good.
for 10. He didn't even. This is his first day on the team, man. Like he got traded on Wednesday, and then last night in the game against Chicago gives him 15 and 7 on 7 for 10 shooting. So it's not that it has to be Bruce Brown. I know we're like pinpointing him. He's like the perfect guy, and I would imagine there's a ton of teams that are contending right now that look at him and want him. So
Bruce Brown's so intriguing.
We would love him, but it's a player of that caliber, right? It doesn't. He's not a star.
No,
he's a role player.
Yeah,
he's a
Bruce
very
Brown's
good
so intriguing because he can do it in multiple different environments. You just mentioned his numbers. The first game with a Toronto Raptors team that's traded away their best player, right?
Yeah.
So he can do it with an elevated role, taking more shots, etc. But then we've seen him do it on a championship team surrounded by Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. He can fit wherever need be, right? I see Brett, what's going on? Marshall Lynch, what's going on? We got trade for Mikal Bridges. Man, I would love nothing more. I'm
not giving up 3 first-round picks for this guy. Like, mind you, part of it is we had him in the building already. So to give up 3 first-round picks for a guy you already had in the building is just kind of like dumb, in my opinion. Now, he is the perfect piece. Don't get me wrong. I do think he fits perfectly with this team. Like, take Tobias out and put Mikal Bridges in. And that's a championship roster, in my opinion. But I don't know. It just feels like Mikal Bridges right now. Brooklyn obviously covets him a lot unless they're bluffing. And you give up 3 first-round picks, Tobias Harris, and what some other I don't know. It just feels like he's going to cost too much, and that's exactly what kind of Daryl Morey maybe is looking away from right now.
Yeah, probably. I would still probably do it just because I just don't value the NBA draft. Like I know that's silly of me. Where do I think we got Tyrese Maxey, Joel? Like, duh, where does everybody come from? But like, I mean, if you're okay with moving Tobias because it's a better fit, do we care about the first round? I don't know. It's an interesting conversation. For him, I do understand, though, because Mikal Bridges is such a weird player. He's not a star, but he's clearly way more than a role player like he was in Phoenix, right? Only taking like 4 shots a game. So he's a very odd piece that would fit perfectly 3-and-D long length within the Sixers lineup. But to Marshall Lynch's point right here, I think the point Scotty was talking about was like, Bruce Brown's not going to cost anything like that.
Yeah, he's not going to cost as much as Mikal Bridges. I mean, Mikal Bridges is a guy that, like you said, people are trying to identify whether he's a number 1 or not right now. Like, it's not whether he's a number 3 on a championship team. We know that he can be that. But the Brooklyn Nets are trying to understand, is this guy going to be our number 1 for the future? And I think that's where you start getting into the multiple draft picks, multiple players for one player. And I just don't know if that, like, I guess what I'm really saying, man, is like, I don't know if you should be trading like 3 or 4 players right now, right? Like moving 3 or 4 players, bringing in like 2 or 3 players. Like, I just don't know if that type of movement with the chemistry that this team has built is worth it.
I was going to bring that up
if you can do 1 player draft compensation for another 1 player, I think that's the perfect trade.
Or like you said, like Tobias and Springer, who doesn't really like. So Tobias is a starter, okay. Springer doesn't really have a role, and draft.
If they would take that, I would do that. Like, to be clear, if they would take Tobias, Springer, 2 first-round picks, whatever, you know what I mean? I would do it. I don't know. I feel like the asking price for Mikal Bridges is going to be way higher than that.
I don't think the Nets are entertaining it. Like you said, they might be bluffing. Sure, drive up the price. I don't know.
You'd have to blow their minds with draft compensation to get him. Is what I guess I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man.
I do agree with that as well. Like the first round picks mean nothing to this team. Like I do get that. It's not that I'm like coveting those first round picks. I just think
but you can't just shed them to
exactly. Like, are you giving up 4 first round picks? Not to even say we have 4, but are you giving up 4 first round picks for Mikal Bridges? Or do you give up 4 first round picks for the next superstar that gets upset and becomes available? You know what I mean? I don't know.
No, I hear you. To backtrack from the trade deadline for a second, you mentioned the chemistry and cohesiveness of this team, dude. They've built this chemistry very quickly. Yeah. Like, let's take a glance back. When was James Harden traded to the Clippers?
October?
Late October, November? Right? Early November? All right. So Nick Batum, Marcus Morris, et cetera, they don't come over here until then. Kelly Oubre's new to the team. Pat Bev's new to the team. And they're already as close as this. Like, I find that fascinating.
Yeah.
Like, they're at the gala, however you want to pronounce it.
You know what I think it is, man? You know what I think the big thing with this team this year is that guys know and accept their role. Like, I think guys knew their role in past teams. They just didn't accept it. But, like, Patrick Beverley accepts his role. He understands who Joel Embiid is to this team. He understands who Maxey is to this team. And I think that's a big part of this, man. Patrick Beverley is – I would like, we talk about untouchables, and untouchable is a very mysterious phrase, right? But yeah, Pat Bev feels like a nucleus, man. Like, obviously he's only here for 1 year.
Oh, there's a bunch of guys I want to move. There's obviously Embiid and Maxey are untouchable, right? But like, I'm not trading Nick Batum. Obviously, I'm not trading Kelly Oubre Jr. and I'm not trading Pat Bev. Like, the word untouchable sounds nuts for those guys. I'm not moving them at the deadline. They're too
value. I mean, you have Pat Bev and Oubre on minimum contracts, and they're contributing heavily to this team. Like, it's not worth it to trade those guys. I would agree, man.
Man. And to Brett's point, I don't want to trade D'Anthony Melton either. So there are not many movable pieces outside of Tobias Harris to make money work. Right. And then you go further down the bench or draft capital. But the one thing I wanted to go back to with go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Marshawn, because like Marcus Morris is such this like polarizing figure out of all of these guys, right? Where some people love him, some people fucking hate Marcus Morris's game.
I've seen it on Twitter.
And I get it. He is up and down, but I do agree with Marshawn.
I like him, bro. I don't give a fuck.
Toughness. He's from the city. Like, it does matter more to him. You know what I mean? Like, he's connected.
Bro, they just had a ceremony to give this dude the key to Philadelphia, and his entire team was there. I don't see how Daryl Morey can turn around and trade this dude at the deadline.
I feel you,
I like him. I don't care, man. Listen, he plays a limited role. It's not like he's out there closing games for the most part. He's out there at sometimes, mid to late fourth quarter at times. Had a huge 4-point play no one wants to talk about when the Sixers were down 4 or 5 the other night. He doesn't look like it. His body type doesn't. He's a shooter. I don't care. Like, his percentages might not be, tops of the league or anything. The dude knocks down big time mid-range and threes
He's a
for
shot
this
maker,
team
man.
in the second half. I don't care. I just don't. The other thing I would say, I wanted to go back to that one Pat Bev comment about can he be the backup point guard?
Yeah.
Listen, I think he can be, but I think it is something to target for Daryl Morey, whether it would be a Bruce Brown, a Tyus Jones, something like that, because to get to 4 is where I want to be. 2 starting, 2 off the bench. Right? You have Maxey and Melton starting, Pat Bev and blank. And then you can rotate throughout the game, obviously, once the initial rotations get started, because I think Pat Bev is just fine as a ball handler. But when he's your sole ball handler on the floor, I think at times things can get clunky for this offense.
Yeah,
when it's Pat Bev running the show with Paul Reed, Marcus Morris, I don't know, Kelly Oubre and someone else. I think it can get a bit clunky and unorganized. So having another ball handler with each of those guards on the floor is important.
And yeah, no, I completely agree. And I'm just going to add on to your point there. I would also say this is a bigger deal than I think we realize. Um, if you look at Tyrese Maxey and the amount of minutes that he's playing per
Mhm.
game, man, like he's young, so like you
Yeah.
let him play, you let him get his wits about him, but he leads the league in minutes per game right now. And while I think Maxey can carry a pretty heavy
Yeah, yeah,
load
yeah.
on his back, do you really want to burn him out before the postseason as well, right? Like if he's having to play 37, 38, 39 minutes a game because you don't have enough ball handling, let's get another ball handler in. Even if you can just move like 2 to 3 minutes a night off of Maxey's
Sure.
load, right? That's going to help him a lot down the line. So I think along with your point of just having two in the starting unit, two on the bench, capable of not only handling the ball but playmaking, getting the ball where it needs to get to, is going to be a big thing for this team.
Yeah.
I would ask you. So obviously there's talk, obviously the backup ball handler, the point guard, the combo guard, whatever you want to look at, right? A Terry Rozier, anyone from Terry Rozier to like Bruce Brown, right?
Yeah.
Of like just like that typical role playing combo guard. Or do you think like a backup big would be more beneficial, right? Like
Ooh.
it's
No,
tough, man,
I'd
because Bamba
still,
has shown me some things. He's
yeah,
injured now,
I
but
would
I
still
have liked what I've seen
prefer
from him.
I would still prefer the backup ball handler that can also shoot and give you some buckets. I think that's going to be more of a necessity than a guy that has to fill a couple minutes a night behind
Yeah,
Joel Embiid come playoff time. Because you still can play Paul Reed. So if
yeah,
you brought in another backup big, unless he's leaps and bounds, like unless it was
right,
Andre Drummond,
right.
Paul Reed can still play a couple minutes a night, and that dude can play a couple minutes a night,
I
matchup
agree.
based, etc. So I would still stick with the scorer, ball handler type. More important. Yeah, I think this, if it's Drummond, I really don't know who else is out there that would get me excited or elevate
Yeah.
my
You
expectations
know what
from this
somebody
backup
threw?
spot. But
Somebody threw Kevin Looney out there, man. That dude's a rebounding fucking
yeah,
machine.
yeah,
But he fits
you
like that
never
drum.
know. He's
Like it
holding
would be the
suit.
same thing, right? Like
Yeah,
it's the same type of player. But I agree. I just wouldn't prioritize that over a guard, man. At the
yeah,
end of the day.
no, I agree. The other thing I wanted to say about these bench pieces that
Yeah.
really stuck out to me the other night, man. They have so many guys. You mentioned how these guys are just so bought into their role, and they are. Like I watched Kelly Oubre pass up on a couple wide open threes. He's not doing that in Charlotte, but
No.
he's doing it here because Joel Embiid's on the floor next to him.
Yeah.
Nico Batum, Pat Bev, all these guys are so bought into their role, but they're also so expandable. Like I've watched each and every one of these dudes close out games this year in start with the starters. Pat Bev did it the other night because it was what was needed. I've
Yeah.
watched Kelly Oubre Jr. come off the bench to start the season and close games because he was the hot hand. Nico Batum has closed games at
Yeah.
time. Each of these guys, the lights aren't too bright. The moment's not too big. I know it's the regular season, but still, late in games against high competition, each of these guys step up, man. Like
Yeah.
Patrick Beverly was gigantic the other night down that
Yeah.
stretch on the defensive end and what he was able to do and get the ball out in transition. Like Nico Batum with that block, like where was this comment at by TR? Bro, Nico Batum is PJ Tucker on roids.
Yeah. It's what we
Roids.
thought PJ Tucker would be, right? Like
Yeah.
3 and D. Like we thought. That's what we
Like
thought he would be.
correct. Kelly Oubre Jr., like getting that strip in the, I think it was in the first half. It was pretty early on, but the Nuggets inbound the ball or got a rebound and threw an outlet to Murray, and he just bang strip layup. Like just being involved on both ends of the
Yeah.
floor is something we question, right? Would a
Yeah.
guy like Kelly Oubre Jr. care on both ends of the floor? Or is he just looking to get score and get a bag in the offseason? No, he's 1000% bought in, right?
Yeah.
Marcus Morris played a ton of minutes, was basically a starter everywhere he was up until his time was done in LA. Comes here, doesn't really get minutes at first, starts to get minutes, starts when Embiid's out at times, and here he is knocking down big threes late in ball games. It's been a lot of fun to watch, Scotty, and they've all been doing this. Tobias Harris, right? 37-point night the other night against Sacramento. 30 plus when Embiid's out. 20 plus the other night against Denver. Tobias Harris looks great. And they're all doing this around the best fucking player on the planet. That is the last thing I came away with from this Nuggets game. He's the best player on the planet, dude. There's no one on his level for me right now. I think he's that dominant. I think he's elevated in areas that he lacked in terms of playmaking. Obviously, I know he got crushed on the glass. Jokic had 10, 11 offensive rebounds. That's something you would look back on and say, Joel's got to be better, more engaged on that part. He's automatic, dude. From all areas, 3 of 6 from deep, the elbow jumper late, getting to the Euro step in transition. There's no one on that dude's level for me right now. I mean, it's a consistent, he might average 35 at the end of the year if he keeps this up. And that's fucking insane.
Yeah, no doubt. Embiid's just been balling out this year.
Yeah, and I promise you, he don't think Jokic is the best in the world. Optics are everything, bro. And last year he chased that MVP, and there was some back and forth from the fan base, and he got crushed for it. This year he said, no, I said he's the best player in the world. I promise you the tone in that locker room, no. No.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, obviously what you do in the court is always going to show, but at the end of the day, until Embiid can do what Jokic did last year, he does have to say that. He has to say that. Like, that's the way I look at it. But, yeah, I think Joel's playing out of his mind right now. You obviously just want to see him continue to play at this rate, but also just continue to build that chemistry with this team and them continue to be that support system for him. I think, we've talked about Patrick Beverley a lot on this show, and I think Patrick Beverley has helped this team in more ways than what we can recognize from the outside looking in, because I'm curious what Patrick Beverley used to say about Sixers players whenever he would play against them. The whole belt to ass tour and like no dogs on the team, but it feels like Pat Bev has brought the dog to the team.
Like, what would Pat Bev have said about Tobias Harris last year?
Exactly where I'm going with this. Tobias Harris is the guy that I'm thinking of here, and this is a guy that Pat Bev has played with over in LA as well in the Clippers.
True.
So he knows this guy. And so for Tobias to come out and play with the attitude that he's been playing with, it just makes me wonder, man. Like, if Tobias goes into the locker room and has only taken 3 shots and Embiid's out, right? It's just him and Maxey on that night. I believe Pat Bev will go get in his face and tell him what's wrong with tonight and what he's doing wrong. Because just a few weeks ago, we heard an interview from Tyrese Maxey. It was one of the games where he went in after Pat Bev talked to him. But that's the thing. Pat Bev had to talk to him. I think actually, no, it was the Christmas game against the Heat where Maxey like played horrible. Yeah. And Pat Bev talked to him after the game. He's like, everybody's going to tell you that that's fine. It's okay. It happens. I'm going to tell you that's not okay. You're better than that. You can be better than that. And you have to be for this team. And it's those moments like that. He shares those moments with Tyrese Maxey, a younger guy, but I'm sure he's having those moments with the other guys as well. And he's building their confidence. And that's what's exuberating from this team right now. It's confidence in what they're doing. They believe they can go out there and beat anybody and everybody. And I do think, while Pat Bev, Marcus Morris, all of these guys that they've added in here, Nick Batum is a wise guy, right? Like, he's been around the league forever. I think all of them help build up Embiid to where he is now. And Embiid can be that leader out in the front for these guys. And credit to Embiid as well, right? And I wanted to get to that point because Embiid deserves all the credit in the world here as well, because he's not only, scoring 35 and scoring 40 in back-to-back games and doing this and, getting the rebound. He's rebounding some of the best rebounding numbers in his career this year. I think he's at like 11.6 rebounds, like right behind Jokic at 11.9. So he's doing everything. Obviously on the defensive end, you could put him as a defensive player of the year candidate. But it's the passing, man, and the sharing of the ball in this game. That's when you see things come full circle for Embiid. And give some credit to Nick Nurse for the offensive system that he's running. This thing is just moving like a well-oiled machine. And The last thing I'll say, just regarding this like Nuggets and Sixers matchup, the Nuggets are where the Sixers are trying to get to. So this was a huge game for the Sixers to come out here and win, especially at home. You have to win that game in order to prove your worth. Now I will give the caveat to the Nuggets. They've already won the championship. So a road game in Philadelphia isn't going to be the biggest situation in the world for them, but they've been there, right? And so it is going to be a barometer test each and every time you play against them. And the other thing I would say is that our team is constructed very similarly to that of the Denver Nuggets. You look at their starting lineup, to be specific, and I talked about this on Scotty Talks NBA yesterday, but Jokic, Murray, right? You have Embiid and Maxey. Those are obvious comparisons. MPJ, right? That third option. And then you have Tobias Harris. Those guys are up and down. Batum and then Aaron Gordon. Now, Aaron Gordon elevated a little bit more as far as production. But
yeah.
They're asked of different things. They're both glue guys, though. They do similar things as well. And then you have Melton and Oubre, who you can compare to that of a KCP. Now, KCP, he is championship pedigree tested, right? He's won 2 chips in his career. He is a guy that can knock down open threes. And that's where you have to acknowledge on this team, if you don't feel like DeAnthony Melton can give you KCP, then that is why you have to go and improve DeAnthony Melton's spot. Same thing for Oubre. If Oubre's starting in place of Melton, do you feel that Oubre can give you what KCP gives you? We have to find that out. But these are all good things. These are good comparisons. These are good things to look at. And this team is constructed so differently from the past, man. You talk about the personalities, but then also just the length and athleticism. That package they got from the LA Clippers is just, it brought in like three or four guys that you just didn't have anything of before. And so I don't know, this whole season has kind of been a revelation of Sixers fans kind of knew this, you know, we needed length. We needed 3-and-D wing guys. Like we knew that would work well beside Joel. And so I guess, you know, Daryl Morey is kind of just really righting the ship here, man. Like, I don't know. How much credit do we give, like, Daryl Morey? Like, is it Daryl Morey? Is it Nick? He brings in Nick Nurse. Like, do we get Nick Nurse without Daryl Morey? Like,
right.
There's been a lot of shitting on Daryl Morey since he's gotten here, but
it's insane,
really
man.
Look at his track record.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
I mean, obviously the winning, getting past the second round has not come since he's arrived.
That needs to come. Yeah.
So obviously there's people that feel a certain way about him. The Harden trade and the way that ended, people want to backpedal and talk about how that was such a bad deal, when in reality, I mean, bro, you traded Ben Simmons for him. Like you traded
look at Ben Simmons now.
You traded Ben Simmons, Seth Curry. Where's Seth Curry? What's Seth Curry doing right now?
Ben Simmons on a max contract at the time.
Yeah.
Like, look at him now. Like, we got off of that.
Daryl's like first 2 days here, it felt like on draft night back in 2020, 2021, whenever it was, 2020, I guess. I don't know. He got rid of Josh Richardson and out of the Al Horford contract.
Yeah.
That was the biggest. And then drafted Tyrese Maxey all in the same night. Like, that was the biggest win of it all. That was 2021, I believe.
Yeah.
So, you know, and then flipped an injured an older Danny Green for DeAnthony Melton. Again, got Danny back and then flipped. He's done a lot of good. The success hasn't come, but he's got his head coach here now that he was able to select. And he's built this roster that, we don't know if they're different. We're not going to know. We're not going to have those answers till April and May, until they get over that hump. I understand, but you have to judge what's going on right now. And what I can say is they're constructed and built differently, and I think you're getting a different outcome. And it's a positive one. So that's different about this team as well, Scotty. And I think TR commented about it. You said it. Like, we haven't even discussed how Nick Nurse has changed this team. We talked about a very interesting word yesterday when it came to Nick Sirianni and the Eagles, and that was culture. Well, the culture that Nick Nurse is instilling in this Sixers building right now is that of a winning one.
Yeah.
And a tough one. And a one that adjusts, like his plan night to night differs. I think it's why you see some nights Daniel House gets to play. Marcus Morris gets to play other nights. Maybe Mo Bamba gets some run over Paul Reed on one night. He's able to adjust to matchups and what's working on a specific night. I think their practices are more intense and get different things out of these guys. They're in better shape. Why do you think in the past that Joel missed 3 or 4 games, is he able to play on a second half on both ends of a back-to-back and give you those performances? No. Do you know why? Because he's so out of shape. The fact that he was able to keep himself in shape and Nick Nurse was able to acclimate him that quickly back to game action was huge for this team in this stretch. So Nick Nurse, like the accountability factor, right? They lose a couple games without Embiid, mind you. Like everyone can kind of excuse it essentially. And he still says, fuck no, unexcusable. Practice Monday is going to suck. I love that. I love that he throws different looks defensively. He'll come out one set. I think Pat Bev actually talked about this on his podcast. The Sixers will come out in a set. If the team calls a timeout after getting a look at the Sixers set, he'll throw a different look out there post timeout. That's not happening before. Are you kidding? So the way he adjusts, the way he throws different looks on both ends of the floor, it's a chef's kiss right now, bro.
Yeah, no doubt. And the crazy part is it's only been, a third of the season or maybe a half of the season so far. And he's been able to implement this culture. And I think you just hear it whenever he talks to the media as well. It's just so different from like Doc Rivers, who's just full of shit every time that he opened his mouth. And, something interesting from Nick Nurse. And like you said, it's just the creativity, the out of the box thinking. And sometimes it's not the out of the box things. Sometimes it's the simple things. And I really loved what he said the other night about Joel against Denver. Obviously, Joel had the 10 assists. He had the efficient night, 13 from 22 from the field. But the 3 for 6 from the 3-point line. And he talked about how he wants Joel to shoot more threes. And I agree, man. Like, it sucks. And, there's times for it, right? We've complained in the past about Joel settling for threes. There's a difference.
No, you don't settle.
If the threes are what they're giving Joel, then you can take them. You're a 35, 36% three-point shooter. And I think to that point, it's just, not necessarily about forcing threes, but just taking less energy off of your body by just taking the shot that you're given. So I don't know, man. I just love the ideas that come out of this guy's mind, and it feels like it's working right now. It feels like it's bringing out the best version of Embiid, the best version of Maxey, the best version of Tobias, and down the line of this team. And I think the Sixers made by far the best choice they could have made for the head coach. And it is crazy to see the difference in the way this team plays for him, right? There's a pride about this team, like you said, where they come out of 2-3 straight losses, and it isn't acceptable. You got to get back in the practice, and they know that too. They said that along with him, so that shows his message is going through the team, and they understand what they're trying to do here. Man, it's just been such a relief. I think it's even more fun to talk about this week as we had the debacle with the Philadelphia Eagles and everything that's going on with that organization.
The night at Tuesday night
was hard, you know what I mean? And
for them
to see this team operate in the way they're operating, it gives you hope, right?
Against
and
Denver,
right now, hope is all we need.
That was the thing, right? Against the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah.
That you were capable of coming away with that win against that team. I think something that gets overlooked as well, and you and I tried to say it earlier when people were ripping through Embiid and opponents played and the games he's missing. Dude, do you have any idea the number of quality wins the 76ers have this year?
Right.
It's astounding. Just off the top of my head, I'm not even looking at them. They've beaten the Nuggets, the Suns, the Timberwolves, the Kings. They whooped LeBron and AD's ass, like beat the dog shit out of the Lakers, who I know are struggling, but still LeBron and AD out west. Kicked the dog shit out of them. They've beaten Boston, right? They beat the Magic already. They play them again. They've beaten the Pacers. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on with teams the Sixers have wins against.
You know what matchup I'm waiting on, man? The matchup I'm waiting on the most right now is the Sixers and the Clippers. I need that matchup because, like, ever since that trade, both of these teams have been rolling. I mean, you can argue that the Clippers have been better. I mean, and that's not it's actually saying a lot because the Sixers have been really, really good. But there's arguments that the Clippers have been the best team in the NBA since acquiring Harden. So I'm interested to see those matchups. I'm interested to see how serious each side takes it and
Yeah.
how hard they play against each other. But no, you're spot on, man. The signature wins this season. You can check them off as we go, and
Yeah,
I would throw OKC in there as well,
yeah,
right? That's another
on the
team that
road,
they were
right?
able to beat.
After
So
a bad loss. So I
yeah,
agree. That's another one. And like, because my point by saying that is like they've had success this year. They're the 3 seed in the East right now with playing less games than the 2 above them in Boston and Milwaukee. And like, I just feel like every year that's what the Sixers fans want. That's what
yeah,
people look for, right? The barometer test and who have they beaten? And then they finally get a test and maybe they lose and people lose their minds. And it's like, man, they already have so many quality wins in the
yeah,
first quarter, half
yeah.
of the season. So,
I just
like,
I think as we approach the second half of the season, after the All-Star break, after the trade deadline, I think along with, obviously building out your full rotations of what you want to see in the
yeah,
playoffs, I think, we also have to just keep heavily in mind Embiid and his health, right? And that's
yep,
the biggest thing because now, I mean, obviously I felt this way before going into the postseason with Joel Embiid leading the way. Like if Embiid is healthy,
yeah,
they can beat anybody. And the thing is, when they match up with the Bucks and when they match up with the Celtics, we can argue to the death of like who's better out of Embiid and Giannis. And if Embiid is healthy, we know who the better basketball player is. At least here in Philadelphia, we know who the better basketball player is. It's not taking anything away from Giannis's accomplishments,
no,
but we know what Embiid can do, right? So that's got to be one of the biggest things down the stretch. And I know Nick Nurse is a smart guy. He had Kawhi Leonard during a championship run. He was able to get through it. He was able to get
yeah,
Kawhi to the playoffs healthy. That's what he needs to do with this team, along with building that synergy, getting guys to step up in those games without Embiid, find their true selves, the peaks of themselves, right? The 37-point Tobias. It's good that he finds that throughout a season so that he knows that that's in there to build
right,
that confidence.
right.
And that's
Because
what the focus
37
needs to
points
be down the
Tobias,
stretch.
I know I can at least get 18-point Tobias, right? Like,
Yeah,
think, you know what
yeah,
I mean? Like, I
yeah,
don't need 40 points from Tobias Harris.
yeah,
Can I get a consistent 18 to 20? Because
yeah,
that's really, if you get 20
yeah,
on efficient shooting from your third option, not many other teams can say that.
yeah. And then just hope, on that one, you have 7 games in a series. Just hope
Right,
that on those 2 games where maybe Tobias doesn't show up, or maybe it's 3
right.
games,
And
let's
beat
just
at
hope
45.
Oubre shows up, right?
Right,
Like maybe Oubre can drop 15 for you
right.
in those games, and Tobias only gives you 10.
Yep.
These are the things that you look at with this team, and you just have to. They're giving me a lot of hope, man. They're giving me a lot
Yeah.
of hope. They're showing me a lot of things I have
TR
not seen.
TR said I low key want him to miss out on the MVP
I
so
do
he could
too,
focus
because
on the
the
postseason.
MVP doesn't mean
No,
anything
I
to me.
agree. But do
It
you know what
doesn't
I
mean
hope
anything.
happens? I hope that he misses a handful more games throughout the year, stays healthy, right? Not focusing on it. But I hope that he plays the minimum amount of games that he has to play to be eligible and still wins the MVP because he was that fucking dominant this year. That's what I hope happens. He's not focusing on it. It's not a priority. He still misses a couple more games and stays healthy, but he wins it, plays way less, but is so much better than everybody else that they give it to him. That's what I hope ends up happening.
I completely agree with you. It would just be the level of pettiness that comes
Yeah.
along with that. This comment here about Tobias as well. I think, looking at Tobias, obviously Nick Nurse has helped him out. I think the confidence of Pat Bev exuberated through the team has helped
Remember when we
Tobias.
thought
But
Doc Rivers was the Tobias whisperer? That
yeah,
he gets
right.
the most out of quick decision making.
Yeah. He talks it, but he doesn't enforce it.
I meant Doc. I think I said Doc Rivers. I might have said
You
Nick
did.
Nurse.
You did. You
Okay.
did. But also I think the thing with Nick Nurse and Tobias Harris and DeAnthony Melton, Kelly Oubre, if these guys ever get out of hand one night and they're shooting really bad or playing really bad or they're head is in the gutter. We have Nick Nurse, who I believe is not going to be scared to bench them. And I
Agreed.
think that is a big part of this as
Yeah,
well. Accountability, like you said earlier. If Tobias' head is in between his legs, it's time for you to come out the game. We can put Pat Bev in. We can put Marcus Morris in. We can put whoever we need to
you,
put in at this point.
I think that kind of it goes into what I said earlier a little bit in terms of different guys finishing games within the
Pat
starting
Bev
five.
finishing the other night against Denver. Yeah,
it's not just because one guy's having a great night or whatever, and he's the hot hand, so let's keep him in. It might also be because someone's getting beat on a matchup defensively, or someone's not, or someone's not shooting well and they need to hit shots or whatever the case may be down the stretch. That's why I love what Nick Nurse has done. Scotty, Doc Rivers, a lot of coaches would not adjust their end of game lineups on a daily basis. That's what he does, man.
Yeah.
Pat Bev, Kelly Oubre, Nick Batum, DeAnthony, all of these guys have sat and finished games throughout the course of the first, 40 games or however many have been played so far this year. It's almost the midway point, man. They do have a matchup. They played 39 games. They do have a matchup in Orlando tonight to start a weird road trip almost. I think, do they come back home? I forget what the Sixers road trip looks like, but they go on West Coast soon. In Orlando tonight, the Magic have come back down to reality a bit. They started out the season, first quarter of a season, basically in the 2 or 3 seed. They find themselves in the 8 seed right now. They're 3 games above 500. They're 22-19. Yeah, I think if we're just giving quick predictions for this game, I think this is a Sixers W. I think right now over the stretch, obviously no DeAnthony Melton. You're missing a couple more depth pieces potentially, like a Daniel House, like a Mo Bamba. I think you're going to get the starting 5 you had the other night, and I think they take care of business, man. I don't foresee the Orlando Magic. Let's see what they have done in their last 5. The Orlando Magic are 1-4 in their last 5 games.
Yeah.
Coming off of a loss the other night against the Atlanta Hawks. However, they were on the road for the last 4, so they come back home tonight. Maybe that gives them a little jolt of energy, but no Franz Wagner and no Gary Harris already decided for this team.
No Franz. That's the big one, man. He's a matchup problem for any team. He does a lot of good things for this team, but I think as long as the Sixers take care of business, come out, take them serious, and do what they need to. And that's the other thing about this team. There's no nights where I feel like the Sixers are coming out and not taking a team serious. So for that to be said, I do think the Sixers come out, take care of business tonight against the Orlando team. The big thing about Orlando, and the reason that I feel they just don't match up with the Sixers, especially without Gary Harris and Franz, they just don't have enough shooting by any means.
Yeah.
Like, they don't have the capability to get hot out of their minds and hit up
Jalen Suggs, Paolo, Mo.
Like the Hawks, for example, right? The Hawks can get hot. Trae Young hits
For
5
sure.
threes. DeJounte hits 4 threes. DeAndre Hunter hits 3 from the corner. Like, there's teams out there that can get hot on a certain night, even when they're underdogs, and that can kind of win you games. I just don't think Orlando is that type of
Paolo's not that guy from the outside,
work
at least.
for everything they get on offense, right? Paolo he's obviously a great player.
Yes,
he's going to be great in this
but
league.
He's not going to torch you from a 3-point
really
line throughout the course of the game.
Jalen
Suggs could hit 4
he
threes.
He played all right against us last time we matched up. He's an energy guy, right?
Yeah.
But just
especially defense. You can't. The thing you can't let Orlando do with Jalen Suggs and those guys is let them turn defense into offense.
Yeah, get out on the break.
You can't let them, get steals at the top of the key and take it in transition. You can't let them get rebounds and have a quick outlet pass and get out on a 2-on-1. So you gotta limit their options like that and keep Orlando's offense in the half court. But I think you'll be fine. Something I would look for tonight to kind of bounce back from the one negative the other night is how we look on the glass.
Yeah.
The Sixers they've struggled with it for the last 5 years. It feels like remember last year on the pregame show, it was a key to victory every night was protect the glass.
Yeah, literally.
That showed big time against Denver. You were able to come away with a win. You play the Magic tonight, dominate the boards. Domination board is something I would
like a concerted effort towards it, right?
Yeah.
Like Embiid, that's one thing. That is the one complaint about that game against Denver. It's like Embiid, you have 7 rebounds or 6 rebounds through 3 quarters. Jokic has 18 or 15 rebounds, whatever he had going into the fourth. Just recognize like, okay, I have to just assert myself a little bit more in the rebounding category. Like it's just little nitpicks, man, when you're talking about
to Brett's point, like, to be fair about that Denver game, he was not really matched up on Joker one-on-one.
Yeah.
He was kind of playing a roamer. He was matched up on Aaron Gordon at times. So that does hamper if he's under the rim, where he's pulled out to when shots go up. But it was just, I agree though, it was something like, man, he's got 7 and Joker has 11 offensive. Like that hurts. So you were able to come away with a win, luckily.
To be fair to Embiid, like because this is a Sixers podcast. To be fair to Embiid, he had to exert himself on offense a little bit more. He's more of a scorer, right? So
second half of back-to-back too.
The energy has to go somewhere, right? And it worked out nonetheless. But even maybe not just even put the blame on Embiid, but Tobias, get in there and help. Batum, get in there.
By the way, I didn't realize this. The Sixers beat the Magic by 20 in Orlando the first time we played. So you had that with no Franz and no Gary Harris. So I believe Gary Harris came off the bench and started drilling threes at one point in that first matchup. None of
him
that.
And Suggs, I believe they both had a decent game in that game, but like you said, it wasn't enough.
Well, Franz gave him 24, and
there was no Embiid the last time either.
Oh yeah. So there was no Gary Harris in this game?
Melton scored 20 plus, Maxey scored 20 plus, and Tobias scored 20 plus. Big Marcus Morris game. But yeah, Jalen Suggs had 20 and Franz had 24, and then I guess I'm not sure, man. Gary Harris is.
Why am I envisioning Gary Harris from the corner in this matchup? Maybe it's just past matchups. I don't
Probably
know.
Has somebody that looks like him.
Maybe.
I'm trying to see as he played.
But the Belt to Ass tour is headed to Orlando tonight, and they're going to want to take care of business, man. Yeah. I did see one last comment. I did see something from Martian Lynch earlier. About here it is. Thoughts on what Stan Van Gundy did on the TNT broadcast. Stan Van Gundy didn't even call the game. Stan Van Gundy was just telling stories and giving opinions while one of the greatest games of the regular season was going on right in front of him. Like right in front of him. He was giving like backhand compliments to Embiid while putting him down. Sucking off Jokic. Sucking off Tobias Harris for some reason. And mind you, Tobias was playing great. Like he would say something about Tobias and Tobias would bang a 3. And it's like, oh, well, you can't really, mock Stan right now. But, just an odd obsession with Tobias Harris.
He had to have coached Tobias in Orlando. I think that's what it has.
Maybe.
He has to have.
And then, bringing up Ben Simmons, like, bro, we don't even care about that anymore.
Yeah.
Like, remember when that was the biggest storyline across the NBA was his return and the Sixers playing the Nets, etc., and the way that crowd was going to be? Sixers fans don't even care if he's in the building anymore.
Yeah.
Why are you talking about that now? It's over 2 years ago.
Well, apparently Ben would be okay with coming back as well, so it's just it's a mute point. But he's a clown, man. It's what gets me with commentators in general. But Stan Van Gundy, he's one of the biggest culprits. It's like these guys that like they got fired from their job that they were supposed to be doing. He's supposed to be an NBA head coach. Uh-huh. He's gotten fired several times from his job.
He's not retired. He didn't step away. He hasn't been able
to do what he's needed to do in his job to fulfill his duties. So now he comes into commentating his secondhand job and now tries to tell everybody how, bad or good that they are. Like he's the biggest determinant in the world of the NBA. Like, no, dude, like you don't get to speak from this pedestal as if you've done something more than Joel Embiid in this league, man. So like the whole like personal grudges that he has, like it's just odd.
Has Joel Embiid averaged less in the playoffs than he does in the regular season? Yes. Has Joel Embiid been injured in the playoffs and missed time? Yes. Has Joel Embiid been past the second round? No. I get it. A, how many times are you going to bring it up on one broadcast?
Right.
And B,
everybody knows
January, it's January. Your job is to call the game in front of you and talk about the game in front of you. A game in which he's dropping 41 on the other MVP, right? The other MVP caliber guy across the floor. He's beating him and beating his team. And you're talking about his letdowns in the postseason.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
I did it. I agreed with one thing that he said, and it was just, once again, but it wasn't necessary to say. But I agreed with it nonetheless. He pointed out, how Giannis didn't win a championship until he won a championship. He didn't perform well in the playoffs until he performed well in the playoffs.
Jokic said it.
Jokic as well, right? Jokic didn't win a championship until he won a championship, and he was criticized as well. And in that same light, that's all it takes, right? Embiid to just break through one time. You just have
Let me tell you this, though. Let me tell you this. They were criticized. Giannis definitely more so as well.
Yeah.
Jokic was not criticized like this. Before Jokic won a championship, Stan Van Gundy was not on TNT broadcast calling a Denver Nuggets game when he was winning back-to-back MVPs and talking about Jokic's shortcomings in the postseason. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Jokic was criticized around, just about, well, he's got to get it done, right?
Yeah.
But broadcasters weren't calling one of his games when he was winning back-to-back MVPs and saying how he's been a letdown in the postseason like they do with Joel. Yeah. That's my point.
Yeah. I think Jokic, the biggest thing for him before the championship was like, can you win with Jokic, who is an offensively dominant center, but really, really isn't a great defender? And I think he showed that he can be a competent defender. He can be a smart defender. And that's kind of what helped him break through. But yeah, I do agree. The discussion, the dialogue around Joel Embiid. Listen, I guess it's just because it's Philadelphia.
I agree. I agree with all of these guys. He has to get it done in the playoffs. He has to. I understand. But what is the point of analysis of the regular season if you're just going to wipe this? Then just don't talk about him until the postseason.
Every time you're going to bring this up and wipe it away.
Don't talk about Joel Embiid until the playoffs come around and then see what happens. Because if every time he puts up 40 or 50 or is leading the MVP conversation, you're just going to bring up, well, he hasn't done it in the postseason, so who cares? Don't talk about him.
I truly,
what is the fucking point?
I truly think that, people, especially on ESPN, man, they say things just to get, reaction. And I've truly, I don't know if it's because I'm getting older now. I'm 30, so I'm old as shit. But I look at ESPN and I just don't even respond now because they put Philadelphia in every negative connotation that they can in order to spark a reaction out of Philadelphia fans because we are reactive. We do care a lot about our sports teams. We want to defend them.
There are other places that care about their teams a lot.
Yeah.
And I know they've been to a finals and they've been to more Eastern Conference finals. There are kryptonite. What the fuck is Jason Tatum won? What is Jason Tatum won with way more around him? Look at the starting five they have around him. What is Jason Tatum won? Nothing. But Jason Tatum gets talked about like he's a top 2 player in the NBA. Luka Doncic, to his point. The fuck has Luka Doncic done in his young career? Nothing.
Yeah.
They'd be slobbering over Luka's back-to-back 41-point performances.
Yeah. That's what I mean, though.
Him, bro.
If they say it about, the Dallas Mavericks and Luka, who's I guess Luka stands would respond. I guess that's the reaction you would get. But I don't know. I've noticed it across all sports where, people just say wild shit about Philadelphia players, but then as soon as they leave Philadelphia and go play elsewhere, they become this golden standard.
Well, it's a back and forth. Like I said, I talked about Nick Wright's talking point about Nick Sirianni the other day, but then this clown comes out. And again, I myself have some questions about what Jalen Hurts is going to look like next year. I don't know the answer to it right now, but that's not to say I don't trust or believe in Jalen Hurts anymore. Nick Wright after the Buffalo win, said Jalen Hurts was his favorite part about this Eagles team that was the best in the league.
He said he's
Now
the
he's
best
questioning.
franchise. He asked the question, is Jalen Hurts the best franchise quarterback? That's what he said. That was 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Now he's the biggest concern.
Right. And mind you, those same people will talk about like Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence, like they're top 6 quarterbacks in the league.
And you know, the difference, us as Eagles fans, we don't sit here and we don't claim that Jalen Hurts is the best franchise quarterback ever. But they do. They take it to that level. And then they come back and they take it to the whole other end of the spectrum. And that's how you recognize that these are just wild, outlandish takes where Jalen Hurts is probably somewhere just above the, like in near the top, but like in between the middle and the top, right? Like
on ESPN or Fox, I just saw it on Instagram yesterday. He had his top 10 MVP list, right? At the end of the year. And I know it's a regular season award. Like I understand that, but how can you? So these same people again that have watched the end of the Eagles season and watched what happened in the playoffs, they're talking about Jalen Hurts the way they are. This dude had Dak Prescott as his number 1 MVP candidate still. You watch that performance, and again, I get it, regular season award, right? Gotta bet, but is it like you're still keeping an eye, right? He had Dak Prescott as his number 1, as his number 1 MVP candidate.
Brother, if I actually had a Cowboys fan. I'm in a dynasty league with a Cowboys fan, and
my condolences.
He said the other day after the Eagles lost, it was like the day after, so maybe it was Tuesday or Wednesday, but he was like, "Yeah, at least we're not in the situation that the Eagles are in. We're in a much better situation." And I just thought about it, and I was like, well, Dak Prescott is 30 years old, and he's never won anything. But you're in a better spot than the Eagles with, 23, 24, 25-year-old Jalen Hurts? Like, that's not adding up to me.
Was he aware at the time that they brought back Mike McCarthy?
It was actually right. Yeah, literally, that is. I'm glad you brought that up because that is what sparked the conversation. Because the conversation was based around the Cowboys keeping McCarthy, the Eagles keeping Sirianni, right?
And what exact situation does he think they're in with Mike McCarthy as their head coach?
Was this not like
I'm not gonna
Dak's best season ever? Was this not Dak's best season ever?
Right. Was it not CD Lamb's best season ever?
Did the same thing in the postseason.
Right.
I'll never get this picture out of my head of CD Lamb going like this after a first down and the score is 27-7, motherfucker. Like, open your eyes, dog, and read the room, man. Like, that is one thing. Like, the Eagles lost on Monday. Thank you, God.
Yeah.
The Cowboys
I
lost.
take it on the chin.
Thank you, God.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you, God, man, because I don't know if I would have survived, man.
But that's the difference, Scotty, and we talk about that, and people question Philly fans. What are we doing following a wild card exit? Holding players accountable.
Ripping the team apart.
Talking about what needs to be changed, what needs to happen, what we would like to see. Do you know what they're doing already? Next year's our year.
Yeah.
Nothing needs to change. Bring McCarthy back. What the fuck are you talking about?
Come on. They'll talk shit on James Bradbury, but then we'll boast up Stephon Gilmore. Like, get the fuck out of my face.
Yeah, as if Romeo Dobbs wasn't cooking his ass the other day.
It's the insane world we live in where the Eagles take all the attention from the Cowboys and they, whatever.
Well, somehow, because I thought they were America's team, so I'm confused. But
we're the bigger disappointment.
Yeah. One last thing before we get on out of here. We said this was going to be a quick show. Hour and 10 minutes later, not so quick. Thought so. I tuned into I've watched portions, but I tuned into my first full Philadelphia Flyers game last night of the season.
I did watch a little bit of it myself as well, man. I won't lie to you.
I have one word. Electric. Electric, bro. This team, listen, okay. So they are 2 points.
Who was it? The guy that had like the spin
Owen Tippett, bro. Owen Tippett had maybe the goal of the year in the entire NHL. It was ridiculous. They won 5-1 against a Dallas Stars team who is a very, very good Western Conference team.
Yeah.
They are now currently the Flyers are now currently 2 points, which is 1 game, behind the New York Rangers for first place in the Metro Division. First place, bro. They're not in a wild card spot right now in January 19th. They're not anything. They're a game out of first place, essentially, behind the Rangers. That is unbelievable. They had Carter Hart is still a stud, and then last night the kid, what's his face? Arison gets to start last night. He's been locked down as the backup, which, by the way, is something when I was really big into the Flyers a couple years ago, is something when Carter Hart was first coming up, was something they were lacking. The Flyers haven't had a viable backup goaltender, which I know seems like a minor thing, but it's not, man. It's not, because the way that the Flyers use backup goaltenders, and across the NHL, really, they play a lot. There's a lot of games they start over the course of a season. And when you're losing a majority of those games, that hurts. So now the fact you have a 1-2 punch there, Hart's still a monster. And these kids got all right, here's how I'll lay it out to end. Owen Tippett kind of came onto the scene last year. He's not supposed to be much. Kid's a stud. Okay. What's his face? Farabee, Morgan Frost, Cates, studs, right? Couturier just came back from injury. Cam Atkinson has come back from injury. Rasmus Ristolainen has come back from injury. They're getting healthier. You make the trade for Jamie Drysdale. He's been a stud since he's come over. They're good, man. They're good. They are a good hockey team. This is no longer just considered a fluky start to a season, the schedule. No. Torts has this team ready to go each and every night. They're beating playoff caliber teams in the Western Conference. That's what they're doing at the moment. And it's been really impressive. Travis Konechny is an all-star. When I watched Travis Konechny 2 years ago, he was a good player. He was a second, third line wing. He's now a first line stud. So I know I've been out of the loop for a minute. Not out of the loop. I've seen everything they're doing. I just have not been tuned in between the Phillies going to World Series and NLCSs, the Sixers doing what they're doing, the Eagles going to Super Bowls and this, and the Flyers were supposed to be in a rebuild. So I'm like, not going to catch too much of their games early on in the year. Here we are. Now I feel like I'm behind. Now I got to catch up with the fan base and everybody else and get back on track. Yeah, that goal was insane. Tippett is an elite hockey name. And Mitch Kov, hopefully, man. Hopefully. 2 years from now or so.
Nothing's for sure with Russia.
He'll be over here. Yeah, you never know. Apparently, Russia doesn't even want their kids coming over anymore. So we'll see what ends up happening. Let's just hope he wants to be here, right?
Yeah,
I don't
need
another situation where the next guy up doesn't want to answer the phone and come anymore. So the Flyers are fun. The Flyers are electric, and we'll be keeping more of an eye on them for the morning show now that the Eagles season is over. I don't know if he'll be a bust, but I loved what John Tortorella said. I don't know Cutter from a hole in the wall. And I thought that was a great line because the kid, he just did it at the World Juniors and everything on a world stage. He has proved nothing in the NHL. And you don't answer calls from Danny Briere and Jonesy. Yeah. What is wrong with you? Yeah. Who are you, first of all?
To think, scumbag, man.
Yeah, that you don't answer those phone calls. But yeah, we'll talk more about them next week. I believe they have a back-to-back. Do they play? They play the Senators on Saturday. I don't know if they have a back-to-back this weekend or not, but I know they play at 1:00. Or is it the Avalanche and then the Senators? I'm forgetting here. I'll have to look at their schedule. I do know that they play 1:00 against
the Avalanche and then the Senators back-to-back.
There it is. I knew it.
The 20 and the 21st. Yeah, this weekend.
I knew it. All right. With that said, let's get the hell out of here.
Yes, sir.
Marshall Lynch, I know you said you could do another hour. I wish, man. I wish. Gotta get out of here. For myself, for Scotty, guys, if you are new to the channel, make sure, please, to smash that subscribe button. We appreciate each and every one of you in the comment section here with us. Makes the show all the more fun and all the better. Have a great rest of your weekend and go shovel some driveways, Scotty.
Oh, man.